Well, hi, Scott Loaboda. Welcome to the 2 by 2. I'm super excited to talk to you
Thank
today.
you. Great to be here.
Yeah. And forgive my voice. I've had this like horrible cold that my voice keeps going in and out. So hopefully it's not too annoying to those folks listening, but I am in it with a little kid. So that's where we are. So Scott, you are a industry expert in both luxury and mass retail. You've worked with several apparel brands. You are also a former associate partner with Bain, but you've had an interesting career with both consulting firms and then within brand work as well within merchandising, which is something that we share in our background. Are you based? Are you still in Toronto or are you in
I'm
Chicago
in
now?
Chicago right now.
Chicago. Oh, great. Okay. Well, great. I wanted to get started by asking. Forgive me if this is a little too pointed. Your career post MBA went into consulting, and then, like most of us, you came out of consulting and got a job in industry, a couple of really cool jobs. We'd love to hear about those. And then you went back into consulting. So take us through that arc and kind of help us understand why did you go
Yeah.
back?
So when I left consulting, I was actually having the time of my life. I was doing this project for a consumer brand, and it was global, and I was traveling between the U.S. and Switzerland, and living in Europe, leading a huge team across multiple continents, and so when I at the time that I left, the reason I did was because Tom's Shoes, which had been a client of mine, asked me to come and take this role, and I felt at the time that I wasn't totally ready to be done with consulting, but at the same time, it was a brand that I really believed in, and also as a smaller company, it seemed to me that roles like this would only come available so often. And I had such a wonderful time working there as a consultant that I wanted to try it out, and I figured I could always go back. I could always go back if it didn't work out, or if I changed my mind. Uh, so Tom's was a really interesting journey. It was a major turnaround effort. They were sort of over leveraged by private equity, and so I ended up helping them build a planning function and put in a lot of basic things in merchandising and supply chain and in planning, and also really just ended up uh, kind of learning every part of retail footwear operations, and so that was really formative for me, and then led to my journey to Lululemon, where I got deep in technical apparel and did lots of strategy work, as well as merchandising work there. And then, yeah, I decided to go back to consulting because I wasn't really done with what it had to teach me. And so my journey over the last few years has been one of really, you know, getting all of the skills that the higher level skills that consulting brings to you, being able to have those C-suite and board level relationships, and and really make kind of tremendous degree of change at the top, from the top down of organizations, both in the strategy and the merchandising and product creation space. And it's also been an opportunity to work with a lot of different brands in a relatively short amount of time, and that's given me a breadth that I probably wouldn't have been able to have if I had stayed in industry.
Yeah. Um, What? Okay, so I have just for I've told you this, but just for folks listening, I had a job after BCG where I ended up leading consumer merchandising for Dell, and it's a lot of things that you're saying. I don't know if the right word is my word is commiserate. You may have enjoyed it, but a lot of the planning and being the linchpin between the product, the supply chain, marketing, retail locations, and the channel, and how all of that stuff comes together, fell to me and my team. I'm imagining that's the same with you in those roles. My question is this: how do the client companies use consultants to help them within those roles? Because we never Like I didn't work with consultants while I was doing that. It was sort of like it was on us. But what are the types of project work that are useful to client companies
Yeah, that's a
in
great
those
question because I
areas?
think there, you know, I have a sort of as I've been both on the client side, and on the consulting side, there are good uses of consultants and there are lower value uses of consultants, and partly that depends on the sophistication of the organization and whether they're really ready to, ex, you know, whether they're really ready to engage with the work, and accept it and actually take the advice and act on it. But the types of work will be definitely capability building. And when I say capability, I mean, just helping organizations upgrade their ability to be strategic and how they do merchandising. You'd be surprised at how many companies don't have a real line architecture or a long range product plan. They have activities that are going on. They have some things in innovation. Those may or may not be linked to actual strategic priorities. The merchant organization may or may not know about them. They're probably not in the system anywhere. Line planning processes across the board, I would say in industry have actually gotten worse over the last decade than better, as a lot of discipline that retailers used to have kind of faded away. So I would say those all fall into the bucket of like, how do you create a more effective and more strategic merchandising organization? And then there's also things like more like category strategy, and helping merchants are often very focused on how do I deliver the business today, how do I deliver the business next quarter, and so being able to lift up and say, if we wanted to have strategic growth levers, where would we really go? Where do we have permission to play? And where is the real opportunity? Because sometimes you see organizations just chase growth, bringing in new categories where really the size of pie just isn't worth it. And so that's
Yeah.
another area where merchants often just don't have time in their day to day to think about it, and then the growth levers that show up in the organization are not big enough to really move the needle, but they're big enough to distract the team from what they actually need to deliver.
Yeah. Are they chasing margin?
Sometimes it's chasing margin. Sometimes it's just a cool idea somebody had, like, a luxury brand saying, like, let's make pet toys, and somebody senior said it. So then all of a sudden there's 10 people, right, wasting time on dog collars, which are delightful but aren't going to move the needle for a luxury goods brand.
Wow. Wow. Well, that's great because I feel like maybe there's tons of
Yeah.
work out there for us. I mean, in my experience when I worked with Dell, like Dell's, at least Dell Consumer, on the, I don't think I'm giving anything away here when I say this, is like on the product side itself is very low margin,
Mhm.
right? Like, especially compared to any of the services businesses they have and compared to the financing businesses that they have, right? So we were like being squeezed, and the only way we could unsort, like, I'll say unfuck it because that's what the guy who ran the business said. But the only way that we could unfuck it was to start to think in terms of like retail cycles, two to three cycles ahead, and then go back and align the retail planning and all of the in store planning with the supply chain, right? Like getting the product guys to go get costs down on BOM costs on with Foxconn and like the companies in China. I always thought everybody was like that, but what I'm hearing you say is
That
that's
is, yeah,
special.
no,
Is that
that is special. Oftentimes, and especially in the apparel and footwear world, that is, and in oftentimes in mass as well. When you're thinking about longer lead time in mass, because they're not really involved in the product development process, the cost just comes in as what it comes in as. And so you're like, it's almost too late to do anything other than raise the price, and the consumer may not want to pay the price. And if you despec, then your product is late. So um, value engineering from the start is really important, but it's also a capability that not a lot of organizations are used to, and sometimes it has a bad name because design and product development organizations will think of that as cheapening the brand, but what it really is about giving the consumer what they want and what they value, and not what they don't value.
Right, like balancing I mean, it's easy to think about this in consumer hardware because the product actually has components. Less easy to think of this in terms of dog collars because, it's like fewer components and they're non-technical, but definitely like thinking about what the commonalities in the supply chain and materials would be across
Hmm.
lines, within lines and across lines would certainly help to get some
Yeah,
supply
oh,
chain goodness and
definitely. And
procurement
that's a
goodness.
that's a huge area of work that a lot of brands, especially the bigger that they get, becomes the materials and trims palettes become extremely bloated, and so it can be hard to drive commonality across a global line to create sourcing leverage and drive margin. And because the bigger an organization gets, the more siloed functions become. You have a sourcing organization that just kind of takes what it's given and goes and sources it the best they can, and a design and product development organization that's just going and finding what they want to use and using it. And there's not a lot of uh, intentional or sort of forced collaboration based on the way that the companies are operating.
Well, I love it when I learn something. Let's talk about, okay, we are recording this. Next week is Black Friday. Cyber Monday follows. We both have lived through the planning, execution, and aftermath of these events. We're going to talk about kind of here's what I wanted to do. For those who haven't, I kind of want to give like a behind the scenes look at how companies prepare for that and kind of what they're thinking about for those big events. And then I would love to hear your opinions on this year and what you think will happen and some
Mm-hmm.
of the different dynamics that are happening in the world and why it may look differently in one way or another. What is your best, like, give me your best Black Friday
Yeah, I
story.
think so. Yeah, companies prepare in different ways. So, for example, at you know at Lululemon, we still wanted to show up full price. I mean, that was fundamentally the strategy, and still is. But we couldn't choose to not. We couldn't not play. So
Right.
the prep. I mean, it starts in the product creation cycle, like in there 18 months before, really, when you're planning like what are going to be.
Wow. 18
Yeah,
months. Okay.
it's 18
Interesting.
months, and you're saying, okay, like what is going to be the item on the front table? Like what's going to be the hoodie that I can do for $98? That's going to do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I stop you? Sorry. But are you really like, it's a hoodie and it's $98 or it's $98?
What is it?
What is it?
Well, no. It's like we need some. It's something cozy for $98 because it's fall and
Okay.
it's
Got it.
gifting, and sub $100 is a perfect gift price point. So you've got to have something volume driving and something cozy.
Can I tell you what the dumb
What is
one
it?
is? What is in Walmart at
Yep.
3.99? What's in Walmart at 3.99 and what percentage of our annual revenue is that
That
one
one box. Wow.
box? Yeah.
Yeah, and the way
Hope I didn't give too much
the,
away, but it
right,
was 10
right,
years
yeah.
ago. I
No,
don't think
the
they
way
can
we
come
thought
after me
about it
now.
was that's an incremental purchase. So it wasn't necessarily, we
Hmm.
didn't think about it as a major component of revenue, but it drove traffic, it drove basket because it was an incremental gifting purchase in the traffic that we were already getting for people who were there to buy for themselves and buy gifts because it was an easy pickup. And and
Okay.
so and then in actual Black Friday, all the merchants would actually go to the stores and help work stores that actually observe what customers are doing, and there were hourly sales reports and hourly calls tracking against tracking against objectives, changing, making additional inventory deployments if they were required. Like it was a very much all hands on deck to make sure that we were not out of stock in anything for Black Friday, Cyber Monday.
How did they plan? Okay, so if they're planning the hero product 18 months in advance, what did like promotion pricing and the marketing run up look like? Like, how are the merchandising teams interconnected with the marketing teams and their
You
planning
know,
cycles?
I like, frankly, it could be a lot better. But what I would say is, because the brand strategy is not to be promotional.
Yeah.
It's there are marketing there will be marketing themes or product stories that then get layered into some of like the key, what I would call, and Lululemon would never use this word, but like the doorbuster products, right? And then like the
Mm-hmm.
stories layer into those, so they kind of create demand around those products, but the products are never marketed by price point. It's just only in the store that you see them at that price point. So it's drawing people in for those items, but you're benefiting from the traffic you know you're going to get anyway because of the strength of the brand. And then you have
Yeah.
something that's just there at the right price point.
Got it. Okay. So the way we made this, here's how the sausage got made. We're thinking through, as a merchandiser, you're thinking, okay, I have slots, right? Across the whole market and all of my channels, big three, Walmart, Costco, Best Buy, and then the long tail, and then Dell.com. What are my big slots? Doorbusters, good. Inspiron, higher tier, better. And then XPS, best, good, better, best. And on Black Friday, it is, and I love this, it's good, good, cheap, cheap,
Yeah.
many, many. Where are those big 5 slots where I'm going to just have like massive, massive volume and I'm going to lose money? And like, this is about a cash revenue type of a
Hmm.
situation. Okay. And then we would think through, we literally would like plan by slot, by what are the 3 things we're promoting by week, each of those merchants in Dell.com, and structure them so they were not in conflict with
Hmm.
each other. Because you can't sell the same
Right.
doorbuster at Walmart as you can sell on Dell.com. So we had
It's
to kind of
a
work
lot
that
more channel
through.
complexity.
The
Yeah.
lo- yeah, and then the long tail gets whatever we couldn't sell in back to
Hmm.
school.
Hmm.
So all that's an inventory
Yeah.
clearance play.
Yeah.
And then on
We would do
right?
that. So even though we had a very full price strategy, Black Friday was the time to roll out an extra rack or two of anything that was left over and have it still subtly in the back of the store. You still had to go find it. It's
Yeah.
not in the front. But that
Mhm.
rack stayed full to clear anything that was still lingering. But
Do you know what the back of the back of the store rack equivalent is in consumer electronics?
no, I don't. What is?
It's Dubai. It's it's Turkey and Dubai. It's clear it
Hmm.
somehow.
Hmm.
Just somehow it's got to go somewhere, and somehow way it does, and that's how it gets. That's how it works. And I don't know anything more than
Yeah.
that. That's all I know. Cool. Okay, so what do you think's going to happen this year?
Um,
You're the expert
yeah.
now.
So this year is really, I think, an interesting dynamic we're seeing. Like, overall consumer spending has been surprising to the upside, but there has been a real divergence in the performance of different, I would say, tiers of retailers and different banners or different brands. And so they're within like Walmart's been doing great. Like, they've been,
Mhm.
clearly there is some economic pressure, I would say, in the top 20% of consumers, and they're gravitating down. Target's results were not great. I think we're going to continue to see this bifurcation trend play out in the opposite way that it has been in the past, where, because 20% of people are earning 80% of the income, those are actually the 20% that are downgrading and spending a little bit less. So
Hmm.
luxury is going to be pressured. Luxury is going to be pressured for sure, especially everyone except the absolute top brands like Hermes were the top like 1.1%.
Yeah.
But
So like I'm not getting a cheap Loro
no,
Piana this year.
no, you're
Like
not getting a
that's
cheap Loro Piana this year. They're not going to have any excess. Louis Vuitton will just send their stuff somewhere and have it disassembled. But their sales are probably won't be great. For I would also say across the board, deals have been and I think will be lower this year. Like average discount will be lower. That's my prediction because
Why do you
mass
think that?
retailers have really cleared through all of like the backlog of inventory that
Okay.
they've had, and so the people who have the brands that have too much inventory are the brands that aren't hot. From a, like in an apparel and footwear perspective, it's brands that aren't hot, or brands that and luxury brands have way too much inventory right now. But in the mass space, the mass retailers have fixed all those supply chain problems, so they are properly inventoried. And I don't see, you know, like this 60-70% off type of deals that we were seeing a year or two ago. I think it's in the things in the 30s and 40s or
Okay.
more things with spend thresholds in order to get a discount is what I'm
Hmm.
seeing already with a lot of the early deals, and I expect to continue.
Hmm. What do you think the headline? I mean, I think there will be economic headlines coming out. I'm thinking like if we're at January 3rd, what's the headline? Yeah, I think I agree with you. Consumer spending is resilient. What other headline do you think we'll see maybe that nobody's talking
Yeah,
about?
I think we're going to see consumer spending is resilient, like luxury spending is down,
Hmm.
um, and then I think we're going to see like I think we're going to see brands basically break into two buckets. I think there's going to be really clear winners and losers in this holiday season and over this year. And there's some that are out competing, and there's some that just haven't made the right moves, and it's catching up to them.
Yeah. I don't know if I have a good feel on my own prediction. Like I'm kind of curious about. I don't know. I don't like have a real insight here. I'm interested to see what happens. Okay. Well, cool. So, where can listeners find you? So, we'll post this, but where can they look for you on LinkedIn? Obviously,
Yeah,
Scott
LinkedIn
Loboda.
Scott Loaboda. That's the
Anything
best place to
else?
find me. I'm very responsive on there. Any retail or fashion questions, I'm here for it. If you need wardrobe advice, I've got that too.
Yeah, I'm all black
Mhm.
now, but maybe I'll ask you if you can get my special sweater. That this I would buy it, but I live in Austin, and it doesn't make sense to spend $3,000 on a sweater that I can wear
Yeah,
3 times
no,
a year.
that is,
So
yes, that's the problem when it's so hot. Yeah, I have a great outerwear
I'm gonna have to
collection
move my.
for Chicago, but if I end up going to the West Coast, it's just gonna sit in a cedar closet somewhere.
No, you'll use it. Well, great. Well, thank you, Scott, so much for talking to me, and I
Thank
will
you.
end it here.
Have a good day.